So, ladies and gentlemen, this morning we're taping from Cummings Brothers in Meductic, New Brunswick. Our good friends here are stacking the shelves and manning the garage and manning the gas pumps, doing a great job. It's always good to record here, and we thank Cummings for allowing us to tape. Now, this morning on Sports Files, we're going to be looking at an extremely controversial topic, and a lot of people have to bear with me because we have to put this all in perspective. Now, in my opinion, most of my wrestling colleagues and friends and fans and fellow lovers of grappling have always considered this man either the top Canadian wrestler of all time or a close number two to Bret Hart. And of course, we're going to talk about Christopher Michael Benoit, better known as Chris Benoit, better known as the Canadian Crippler, better known as the Canadian member of the Four Horsemen his last 4 years for WCW. Former world champion WCW, former world champion in WWE. Pound for pound, in my opinion, I covered the prime of his career. He is the best pound for pound wrestler I've ever seen, and that's saying a lot. I grew up watching a lot of the junior heavyweights. I dealt with Bret Hart, Malenko, people like that. Eddie Guerrero, I think he's a better wrestler than Eddie Guerrero, but that's another conversation for another time. Now, during his 22-year career, he excelled in many major federations. Besides WWF and WCW, he was part of the great lineup of Extreme Championship Wrestling in their glory years, and also New Japan Pro Wrestling, where he changed the international flavor of the junior cruiserweight or cruiserweight division, the junior heavyweight division. And according to noted wrestling journalist Dave Meltzer, he's considered a top 5 in his opinion overall. Now, for those of you who don't know, his career came to a crashing halt in 2007, where during some kind of a dementia or problem with concussion syndrome, he unfortunately killed his wife and his child and committed suicide in a very, very unforeseen act. We're still trying to figure it out 12 years later what drove Chris to do this, because, you know, with concussion syndrome and some rumors of steroid use, sometimes people get confused, but in this case, it was a bad series of events that would led to that situation. I'm not going to go deep into that because I'm not an expert on concussion syndrome. I'm not what do you call a quick death investigator. I'm a criminal investigator, but not in his favor. I'll leave the experts talk about that. But we want to talk about the influence he had on all these young wrestlers coming up, the influence he had on Canadian wrestling, the influence he had on the junior heavyweight division. Now, I already talked about it. He was a 2-time world champion, and he was also the 12th WWE Triple Crown champion and 7th WCW Triple Crown champion, which means the world championship, the U.S. title, and the tag team championships. And only 4 people have done the WWE and WCW Triple Crown, which is very, very prestigious. He won the 2004 Royal Rumble, and he joins Shawn Michaels, the only 2 men to win a Royal Rumble as a number 1 entrant. Now, Chris Benoit would have been inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame by now if it were to have been for that unfortunate incident in 2007. But as it stands right now, him not getting into the WWE Hall of Fame is more of a reaction to a series of moments on the weekend and not to his whole career. Now, over 22 years from the age of 18 on, he probably was a top 3 wrestler in every federation he was in. And we look at Extreme Championship Wrestling first. When he tagged with Dean Malenko, one of the best technical wrestlers that's ever been true to Pike, won the tag team championships there. With New Japan, of course, the IWGP Junior Heavyweight. He won the Best of Super Juniors twice, and later on in 2004 won Wrestler of the Year for Pro Wrestling Illustrated, which is kind of ironic because the PWI would really not look favorably towards Canadian pound-for-pound wrestlers, including Bret Hart and others. He never considered what he called the overall picture, and he changed the way even that PWI looked at these technical wrestlers, because Chris Benoit was a very technical wrestler. He could brawl, he could suplex, he'd hit the headbutt, good for the chops, good in all situations, just as adept at tag teams and singles play. Now, Stampede Wrestling, that's where he got his start, and He won the mid-heavyweight championship there, the British Commonwealth 4 times. He won international tag team championships 4 times, and he made the Stampede Wrestling Hall of Fame. Now, Universal Wrestling Association, he won the light heavyweight title there. World Championship Wrestling, the heavyweight title, the tag team championship twice from Malenko and Perry Saturn. He won the television championship 3 times, the U.S. title 2 times, and again he was the 7th WCW Triple Crown champion. In the WWE, which he unfortunately ended his career on an unfortunate note, he won the world title once, and he would have won the world title for a second time, but the incidents on that weekend, he was supposed to take over the belt on that weekend. Unfortunately, like I said, to unforeseen circumstances, it didn't happen. He was the original tag team champions in the revised WWE Tag Team Championship. He won the U.S. title 3 times, Intercontinental Champion 4 times, and he won the Unified title 3 times with Jericho and Edge. Won the Royal Rumble in 2004, and of course he won a WWE Tag Team Championship tournament in 2002 with Angle. Now, what the Crippler basically, and I mentioned that several times in my columns in the Campbellton Tribune, he would draw, not say heat, but he would draw the fans into each match he was doing. He wasn't a face, he wasn't a heel, especially his time in the 4 Horsemen. He was just a person that could bring the quality of his experience to the ring. Now, you gotta understand, he started out as a junior heavyweight or cruiserweight division, no more than 200 and some pounds. He was going against battlers who were much larger, much quicker, but he was like a rabid Wolverine. That's what he was nicknamed for a while. He had a lot of finishing moves, a lot of submission moves. He could make any wrestler he was wrestling against look better because he was that quick. Now, I basically think with the death of Owen Hart and other incidents involved, including Eddie's situation, he suffered from massive depression. Now, did the depression start during his career with WWE when he had a lot of stress as champion? Was he using steroids? Allegedly he was. Some people say no. How much concussion syndrome that he has? If anybody has concussion syndrome, it can throw your mental state off quite a bit. Now, in my personal opinion, Benoit doesn't need to be inducted in the WWE Hall of Fame. Sometimes they just PR. I mean, for God's sake, Vern Gagne is in there, of all people. He never did anything in the WWE except act stupid and allow Hulk Hogan to be signed by Vince McMahon. There should be a Canadian Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, like an international one, and Benoit should be the first inductee. The people that have been around him, the people that have known him, you have to give forgiveness for people who was in situations where basically it gets out of hand. He was never a deliberately hateful person. He was never a person to seek out hatred against others. It was just basically he needed help and didn't get it. I mean, do you blame a person like Robert Williams for killing himself because he was going through a mental state at a time he couldn't control? Of course not. Now, we can't forget what Benoit did, but we can forgive it, and I've forgiven Benoit, and I call them other people to just put that aside and look at the quality of work that Benoit has done. And see, this life is not easy for people with mental illness. Every person has a path to follow to try to battle it. In this case, he made a wrong decision. So on this Tuesday morning, we wish everybody good luck today with the flood situation. But if you have a chance tonight, ladies and gentlemen, go online and probably look at some of Chris Benoit's best matches. I know I do on a regular basis, and I do miss the guy, and I just wonder in the last 12 years, wrestling would be a lot better. But you look at people like AJ Styles and Kevin Owens and a lot of pound-for-pound quality wrestlers like that, that's all the connection to Benoit, because he broke the rules, him and Owen Hart. But not having Owen around and not having Benoit around, especially as a Canadian sports writer and editor like myself, there's a gap in my columns, ladies and gentlemen. I used to write about them all the time in my sports ball column for the Tribune and for the Cataract, and I do miss them. It's just like people that they're just ghosts. And but you know something, they call him the Crippler for a reason, and he didn't deliberately try to cripple his opponents. But I mean, he was our Canadian superstar, and Jericho's okay, and Bret Hart is tremendous. But like I said, he had an opportunity to be the greatest Canadian wrestler of all time, and unfortunately, due to a decision he made that was something that's for the ages, it's a what if. Anyway, so have a good morning. Keep your stick in the ice. Bye.